enough to be deceived. I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm just saying people have different opinions about things and you can argue all day long about it, like Sanji and Luffy were arguing. But at the end of the day, no two people are the same and everyone bases their opinions off of different life experiences and cultural backgrounds. So Sanji has had his experiences that has led him to believe that it is worth dying for the restaurant that he wouldn't be able to repay his debt otherwise. Whereas Luffy, because of his past experiences and his beliefs, he thinks it's stupid to die for the person that sacrificed his dreams to save your life, you know? Sanji says, and what do you know about it? What do you know about the immensity of my debt to this place? To which Luffy replies, so you're willing to die for it? Are you stupid? And I just love this so much because Sanji thinks his reasons justify his actions, but for Luffy, those reasons make Sanji seem stupid. It just further illustrates how we often look at each other, giving our reasons thinking the other person should understand, and then we just end up looking stupid to each other. Or not necessarily stupid, but sometimes you seem ignorant or heartless or whatever, just because we have different beliefs based on different life experiences. I'm not gonna lie, the way that some viewers have argued with me, not in One Piece, not just in One Piece, maybe one or two One Piece people that argued certain things, but especially in a lot of other anime, let's just say Attack on Titan, for example, where a lot of people are almost excusing genocide and they use these reasons and they say that reason, and I'm just sitting there and I'm not gonna lie, I felt like these people are dumb as fuck. And it's not everyone, but there were a few people in the way they were arguing that made me think that. I didn't say it out loud though. I don't think you have to always say what you think or in that way. But I'm just as sure that some people have looked at me and thought the exact same thing and been like, and typed it in the comment section, especially people that don't think I read the comments. And they just be like, this bitch dumb as fuck. And that's fine. I just love that interaction between Luffy and Sanji because I thought like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what we look like to each other probably. And yeah, I just had a lot of fun with that whole scene. In the reaction, when I saw Pearl, the shield guy was not dead. This is something else. I said, and this thing's still not dead. And I just want to say that was a bit harsh. I hope no one took that seriously. Okay, next thoughts. I also love how my opinion of Gin goes up and down throughout the episode. Did anyone else notice that? It's almost like in the last arc with Django. I so badly wanted Django to be good or like to turn around and do the right thing, but he never really did. Gin, however, eventually gives into his true human nature. A part of me believes that all people have the potential to be either good or bad. No one is born evil, in my opinion. It's determined by a series of choices we have to make every day, mixed with a little bit of how we are raised to think. But a part of me believes that we are more inclined to be good. I feel like we lean towards good. Like, even though we're not born good or bad, I feel like we lean towards good. I don't know how to explain that, but that's how I feel about it. I really think people would rather be loved than be hated. They'd rather be love than be hate. Sadly, however, we are often fooled into believing that we don't deserve to be love or be loved, or that hate is our only choice or is the stronger or better choice. But despite Gin's internal struggle that he shows throughout the episode, oscillating between what he's been taught to do by Don Krieg versus what he knows is right, he ends up doing the right thing, or at least as right as he could manage in that moment, which was not to kill the man who showed him kindness and mercy despite having no real reason to do so. Sanji's sincerity of character broke through the walls that Don had been hammering into the minds of his men. At least it broke through Gin's walls. I really like Sanji's way with words. he kind of swears a lot and he says like, thank you, eat shit. I swear a lot, so I like seeing an anime character that also kind of swears a lot or just, has kind of like a potty mouth. I don't know how else to put that. It's just very relatable for me. Okay, now comes something that I didn't really want to write, but I chose to include anyway because I feel it's really important. I hate to include a quote from Don Krieg, but these were some smart words. I have to admit, when a guy gets flustered because someone calls him weak, it's proof that he recognizes that he is weak. This is true in anything else. When someone calls you names and you get angry or sad, it has to be because on some level you believe that those words are true. If someone calls you stupid and you know that you're brilliant, it would be like, I don't know how to say this word, pouring, you know, when you throw something, like it'd be like pouring water on a duck's back. It just rolls off. There's nothing for it to cling to. But if there's a part of you that is even afraid of being stupid or believes that you're actually not that smart, any kind of insecurity like that, it will soak into you like water soaks into a sponge, and you will end up reacting out of anger like KRIEG's men or sadness. This is really important for me because I sometimes choose to react out of anger instead of sadness often. Not that you should react out of either. I just really related to this because so often when someone talks about me or says things, I immediately react out of anger as a defense mechanism. But I need to remember these words by Don KRIEG, that if I react out of anger, that just means that a part of me believes that they're right. And then I shouldn't be angry at them. I should, take some time to do self-reflection and find out, why do I believe this and how can I change my attitude about myself, or just build up my confidence in that area some more. I really love these words because it can also be applied in other situations, and when you understand the truth these words hold, you can learn how to shift the principle of it in your favor, and it can actually help you a lot in life. For example, if someone is calling you too fat or too skinny, it can only hurt you if you see yourself as too fat or too skinny, right? And yes, you can totally use too skinny as an insult. I'm very flat-chested. I don't have much of an ass. Kind of bony. I poke people often with my, I'm just very skinny, and sometimes people can use it as an insult to say, oh, I look so unhealthy and so ugly and so unwomanly and da-da-da-da-da. So yeah, you can't just be insulted for being called too fat. It's definitely can be used both ways. This is actually a valuable situation that reveals to you your beliefs about what it means to be a specific size, and it's so important to not only cultivate a mindset where those words can roll off you without leaving a trace, but you can even take it a step further and learn how to use those words to your benefit. I mean, how empowering would it be if whenever someone calls you too fat or too skinny or any kind of insult, instead of letting it roll off your back, you do soak it in like a sponge, but you choose to see it as a compliment. You do that by taking pride in your size, whatever that may be, with regards to the example I just used. So for example, I eventually changed my mind. Instead of feeling sad when someone called me like too skinny, and it made me feel very unwomanlike, because women were supposed to be, like curvy and beautiful. And I started seeing it as a compliment, and I started saying like, yeah, bitch, I'm skinny, look at me, da, 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 da. And I made it like this attitude thing, and it's been really fun, and I feel so much better now about myself and about my size. But you can also do that by thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, this person is so intimidated by me, they have to try and break me down just to feel good about themselves. Wow. So then you can turn it around and just be like, this person wouldn't be insulting me if they weren't intimidated by me. Anyway, I'm sorry, it sounds like I'm not even talking about the anime anymore, but I had to mention why I'm so impressed with Don KRIEG's words and the unshakable confidence he had in his strength. I thought this would be good to bring up because it's something that each of us can apply in our own lives. It's very relevant. It's sad that it was Don KRIEG's words that made me think of all this, but still, even though he's a bad guy, I think his words here are really valuable. No wonder he had conquered East Blue like he had, and as much as I dislike his character, I have to at least give him that credit. But regardless of how strong he knew he was, when that strength is built on the foundation of cheap tricks and shameful cheats upon cheats, then eventually it will be run down by someone like Luffy in this case, who is not only confident in their strength, but is backed by a righteous character. Because as stupid as Luffy is, yes, I read the SBS, even Oda says part of his bravery, part of his character is he's stupid, he's a baka. But it is backed by a righteous character, and that is why the person who is left standing at the end will be Luffy. I don't know if anyone else noticed this or if it was just my imagination, but Gin's voice changes, almost like he becomes a different person from time to time, like he switches off his feelings to be the killer Don KRIEG wants him to be. When he says When he says farewell, just disappear from this world, his voice sounds different, lower, compared to when he's being Gin in general. It's like he switches between his human nature versus the way he's been nurtured to be. Referring to the nature versus nurture argument. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that in psychology. I think I may be right, because there's a moment where it looked like he could have finished Sanji off and you don't see his eyes. It's like shrouded in darkness or shadow. But then after his swing, Sanji says, "What's this? Mercy?" I feel like he was constantly fighting against his humanity to be this cold-hearted demon, the battle commander Gin, that Krieg wanted him to be. But there was also always his humanity in there. He was never Don Krieg. He was trained to be this, I don't know, like the title of that episode says, cold-hearted demon. And the first time I noticed this voice change was at the end of episode 26, I think. I was confused about who was talking. I never said it, but I remember thinking it. And then in this episode, I heard that voice again, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's Gin. It was Gin talking. And then if you go watch back the end of episode 26 and the whole of 27, you can hear his voice going between Gin and then the cold-hearted demon battle commander Gin. You know, I don't know if it was just me, but I really think that the voice actor did really well there. Gin's voice actor is phenomenal. The part where he was holding Sanji down but couldn't finish him off and he started crying, that was an amazing scene. Like the way he voiced his, almost choking back his tears and his emotion. But it's not just that. All of his voice acting up to now has been amazing. That specific scene just sealed the deal for me. Apparently his Japanese voice actor is Kenichi Ono. The only other time I have heard him was in Eureka 7 as Morita, apparently, but I don't even remember this character. He's done quite a few other characters, but not from any other anime I've watched. I think this moment is a lot bigger than I realize. Men in general are not allowed to cry, so I imagine how bad it must be for a pirate to give into these kinds of emotions. But I absolutely love that the walls he had built up through all these years of fighting for Krieg crashed in when he was faced with killing the man who saved him from starvation. I mean, he still says, "I don't think anything we've done so far is wrong," which is pretty delusional. I mean, I can't be sure because I never saw them pillage villages and how they went about that pirating and stuff. But I don't think he's known as the cold-hearted demon by other pirates for no reason. But at least the kindness that Sanji showed him, despite his past, has kind of thawed his frozen heart. Okay, this next part I wrote in capital letters. Every evil person ever. Winning is the goal. The method doesn't matter. Only the goal is important. To me, that's a sign of someone who has lost, even if their intention is to be good, if a person says that, they have lost their humanity, they've lost their reason. And to me, that kind of person is not a good person anymore. The person who says that, listen closely. Winning is the goal. The method doesn't matter. Only the goal is important. I don't think I have to say anything more than that. It's kind of self-explanatory. You can go look at most villains who see themselves as just, they argue this way. Their goal is righteous, so the method doesn't matter. And I am not the kind of person that could agree with that. I don't think doing bad things for good reasons is ever justified. And you can argue that it is, but there always is another way. And if you can't see it, it's just because you can't see it yet. And then doing something else that's bad, but for good reason, it's a cheat. You have to figure out how to do the right thing in the right way, because otherwise the end goal, I think I mentioned it in the reaction actually, it will always be cursed, and it will never bring you true happiness. In fact, it probably will end up being your downfall. But like I said, I already explained my feelings on that in the reaction. It's something that I talk about often, or at least try to talk about often in my Dororo reactions and reviews. and also in Attack on Titan. But yeah, I don't want to bring that argument into One Piece as well, because to be honest, what I've noticed through talking about it with others is that people already feel what they feel about it. Me saying what I feel isn't going to change their minds if they don't feel the same way. They're just going to stand by their beliefs. And I think that'll be true until they're faced. Like, they're going to believe in someone's end goal and not care about the method because it doesn't affect them. So, and I know this is sounding very vague because I'm talking about other anime now and not One Piece, because in Don Krieg's case, it's very obvious that his goal isn't good, his methods aren't good, you know? Or his goal is kind of neutral. It's like being the strongest or getting One Piece. Like, it's kind of a neutral goal. Or no, it's not. It's a goal. It's a good goal. Like, make that your goal. But his methods are wrong because he deceives people. He kills people unnecessarily. He, kills the people that fed him and his men. Like, most people would agree that his goal is fine, but his methods are wrong. And the other anime, however, it's less clear than that because people are use different things to justify why the methods are the bad methods are worth the end goal. Whereas I think in this case, it's kind of obvious that everyone would say, oh, but Don Krieg, da da da. I wish I could explain this better, but at this point, let's just leave it at that. I'm sure the anime will bring up similar situations where we can talk about it more. Next topic. Here is something that I could talk about for hours, but I'm just going to mention it shortly, and no, I didn't mention it shortly. Imagine the kind of emotional manipulation that was happening on Don Krieg's ship. The fact that Gin threw away the gas mask. He threw away his life because Don Krieg told him to. Don Krieg was standing over there and he told him, throw away that mask. You don't deserve to live. And he did. Gin did that. Imagine the internal struggle that went on within Gin, trying to kill Sanji, then trying to spare Sanji, trying to kill him again, saving his life from the gas, etc., etc. Gin even talks highly of Don, even after Don tells him to throw away his mask and essentially kill himself. All of this because Gin was torn between being true to his humanity and being the killer Don Krieg shaped him to being. I realize that it's not all Don Krieg's fault. At some point, Gin had to have chosen to follow him, but like Sanji said, Gin, you chose to follow the wrong man. I knew I said I was going to mention this shortly, but now I have more to say. Big shocker. Gin says this is the obvious consequence and throws away his mask. He actually believes that he deserves to die just because he showed emotion. Once again, imagine how Don must have broken these men in. Once again, imagine how Don must have broken these men in, trained them like dogs to think so little of their lives that he can decide for them what means they get to live or die. I hope I'm making sense here because I don't feel I have the words to describe how crazy that is. And yet this is very realistic because a lot of people suffer from the same sense of worthlessness because of a person or even an organized religion telling them they don't deserve to live because they did X, Y, or Z, or because they don't do X, Y, or Z. And what I mean when I say X, Y, or Z is going to probably come up in other reviews. It just means like it's variables, like X, Y, Z. You could do X, Y, Z, and that means you don't have the right to live or whatever. And I continue to kind of try and give examples for what I mean with the situations X, Y, and Z. What specifically comes up for me in this case is the amount of people who commit suicide because they're gay, for example. Because they're made to feel in some way that they don't deserve to live, they're wrong for loving someone of the same sex. Of course, Oda's writing in this case was not commentary on that specifically, but what I'm trying to say here is that Don Krieg's manipulation of his followers' minds and sense of self-worth is actually very realistic and dangerous and not as obvious but still prevalent in many societies all around the world. Although the villains in One Piece have been exceptionally weird and wonderful in many ways, if you think about the Nyaa brothers and Don Krieg and Buggy, I feel like they are frighteningly real too. Like these are fantasy characters, but the situations and their actions appear in real life much more than we realize. Even this line of Don Krieg is so often used as justification in real life. He said, "Isn't killing him before he makes the same mistake again a sign of my love?" He said that about Gin. How many parents hurt their children for various reasons because they don't live up to their expectations, and they use the phrase, "It's because I love you." Fucked up. Parents who, for example, try and beat the gay out of their children. And there are many other examples. I remember when I was younger, my mom took me to a friend's house sometimes. But we'd get there and I wasn't always allowed to stay because the mother would be inside chasing her children around the house, hitting them with a belt while they're screaming for help, like screaming, running up and down the halls, trying to get away from this mother beating them with a belt, only because their grades weren't good enough. And this was, of course, done out of love. Do you guys understand what I'm trying to get at here with just looking at the type of villain Don Krieg is, the words he uses, and I mentioned this at the start of my review, how these interpersonal relationships work and how dangerous some things are shown to be. And it's not just in the story, it's in real life too, and we have to look out for this kind of stuff. The reason I choose to talk about these things, even though it's related to the anime but not entirely just about the anime, is because this is the kind of stuff it makes you think about, and it's important to realize how the story reflects real life so that we can recognize this kind of mentality, these kinds of interpersonal relationships between people, not only for our own safety but to help others. On Twitter a little while ago, I read a very long thread about, I think it was a Korean person who talked about, and I know it's in Japanese families as well, the exceptionally high expectations from, I hope this is the right term, Asian parents put on their children to get good grades, and if they even like get a B or whatever, then the amount of shame is intense. And this person that tweeted this on Twitter talked about how their mother specifically also beat them if they didn't do well enough in school, and this child was made to feel, not just by their parents but by, I know that this person was went to therapy and stuff, and the therapist, as far as I remember, the tweets saying the therapist told them, well, that's your culture, you kind of have to suck it up. And it's so insane that this child was made to believe that they deserve that beating, they deserved, to be treated in that way, just because they weren't smart enough and it's in their culture and da 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 da. And the reason I want us to be aware of stuff like this is so that maybe you need to hear that you're trapped in a situation like this. Maybe you will now recognize one of your friends could be trapped in a situation like this, and it's so important to help those people because sometimes they feel so, gay people, Asian people who are made to feel like they're not good enough, if they're not smart enough. There's so many other situations. These are just two examples I can think of. So often, why do you guys think suicide happens? It's because of situations like these, relationships like these. And yeah, that's why I just want to point it all out, because I want you to understand if you're in that situation, and I want us to be able to help each other if you know someone in that situation. Sorry for my rambles, as per usual. Towards the end of episode 27, Luffy runs away scared when Don is shooting those sharp things at Luffy, because obviously it would hurt him. Because Luffy was running towards him, and then he started shooting those sharp things, and then he turned around and ran away. But since then, obviously, I've also seen episode 28 at this point, and I know that changes, because in the next episode, in episode 28, Luffy goes towards him again, and then there's this big explosion and the water, and he's shooting all the pointy things, and that was such a great moment because Don is thinking Luffy will run away again and turn around in fear, but then Luffy uses that moment of overconfidence from Don, and the wave that crashes up, because I think Don threw a bomb and then shot all the pin stuff, and then and he uses that kind of moment of confusion, you don't know where it's going to come from, and he jumped at Don Krieg, and then Don had his cloak with his spikes on, and not for a moment did Luffy hesitate. He punched straight through that fucking cloak thing, and it was such a good moment. But anyway, what I was saying is, he changed. So he changed from the first sequence where he turned around to the second sequence where he went straight in, not only through the pins but through his cloak. What changed his determination so much that made him charge in through those spikes and hit Don through his spiked cloak too? And then I continued editing episode 28 to see if I could see when exactly did that determination for Luffy change. And I think it had to do with the way that Don was treating his, like, Gin. The way that, like, Luffy realizing that this man has zero, I don't know, love for his nakama. This man told Gin to kill himself. I don't know. I still don't know the moment that it changed for Luffy. When did he really decide? When did he really become that determined? And I think it was when they took Gin away. This is just my guess. I didn't write notes on this, but when they took Gin away, Patty and Karn, and Gin told Luffy, Luffy told Gin, don't die. I'm going to destroy this man. And I think it was just, and yeah, it was a really good moment, and it was a big change in his determination, and I just loved that. I loved seeing it happen. Okay, episode 28. I won't die. Conclusion. Luffy versus Krieg. This is one of my favorite lines, scenes, expressions in the anime thus far. This was when Sanji, with those eyes, looks at Don Krieg and says, you chose the wrong man to follow. I think this is wow. This was just wow for me. Next, a note. Krieg calls Luffy Hammer Boy. One of my patrons, Chris Poveroni, kindly explained that to me. I never thought about it while watching the anime, but he explained it in the comments of my full reactions. Chris commented, I'm not sure if someone has pointed this out or not, but early on they'll refer to devil fruit users as hammers, because if they fall into the sea, they'll simply sink like a hammer. It's primarily used as a derogatory term, it seems. I just thought that was a really fun note to include. And now, for the rest of this, for the episode 28 notes, a lot of it is just me repeating the scenes or like the scenes that, the words that really made an impact on me. So bear with me. It is leading somewhere, and I am going to explain to you why I'm literally just showing, basically rewriting these scenes, because it's just amazing in this episode. Episode 28 was fantastic. Luffy, so this is my grave, and then he pulls out those things, and he throws it. Your grave, pulls out. My grave, and he pulls another one out of his leg, I think. And the noise, like when it hits the fucking wood, like hell. Don't decide my grave. I'm not meant to die here. Krieg said to Luffy that he wouldn't survive after 2 to 3 hits with his spear weapon. Let's count how many he took in the end. So I'm writing these notes as I'm editing, remember that. So I was writing, because after Don Krieg said that, and then I watched. The first one hit close, but not on him, but it did blow him away. One blew Luffy away when he was holding onto it, but I don't think that really hit him either. But then while in the air, it seems like Luffy had the idea to attack the spear. I don't know if that was smart thinking backed by bravery or just quick thinking backed by recklessness. But that's when he took his first real hit with the exploding spear. Not counting the spikes he was shot with earlier. So that was his first real hit with the spear thing. So that's 1. And remember, Don Krieg said 2 to 3 hits with his spear weapon and Luffy wouldn't survive. So let's say 3 max. He takes his second hit just after Zeph says, even if Krieg was equipped with 1,000 weapons, he may not be able to defeat the one spear this kid has. Life or death. In a pirate's fight, the one who hesitates even for a split second thinking about death can get crushed. I remember saying something similar in my notes for episode 24. If you're thinking about losing, your chances of losing are that much higher. For most of us, the challenges we face each day is not literal life or death situations. So most of us can get away with a few moments of negative thinking. But like Zeph says, for a pirate, even a split second focusing on the wrong outcome can cost you your life. And then Luffy takes his third hit. 3 hits. Zeph says, at least that kid has no hesitation. No hesitation. This is also one of my favorite quotes. Luffy takes a 4th hit, one more than KRIEG said it would take to defeat him. And Zeph continues to talk. Is it that he has what it takes to survive? Or does his conviction mean he simply refuses to die? So is Luffy just strong enough to survive, or is it his conviction that makes him strong enough not to die? And it's this moment that marks when I went from this. If you look at this picture, it's a picture of my top 8 favorite characters from all anime ever. Anemone from Eureka 7, Tamaki Senpai from Ouran High School Host Club, 02 from Darling the Franxx, Eren Yeager from Attack on Titan, Mikasa Ackerman, Attack on Titan, Zoro, and Luffy. So it was Zoro and then Luffy. So this whole scene that I'm reading to you right now is when I went from this to this. I put Luffy above Zoro because all of this just blew me away. So remember, he took 4 hits, and then Luffy takes a 5th hit, a fifth hit. 2 whole explosions more than KRIEG said it would take to finish him off. He screams, KRIEG screams, I'm the strongest man alive, but who is left standing at the end? Zeph continues to say, if KRIEG's massive fleet is strength and his thousands of spears and poison bombs are strength, then that kid's spear is equal to it. And I'm not exactly sure what he means with spear yet. It could be his conviction, but I would like to hear your theories on that. Is Zeph talking about Sanji when he says that he knows someone that would get attached to that same spear for his own stupid reasons? What exactly does Zeph mean when he's referring to Luffy's spear, and which spear is Sanji getting attached to, or would he also get attached to? His own spear, his own strength? I have to admit, this is too much of a riddle for me at this point, and I'm not really sure what he's talking about. So this happens at the end. All of this talking and Zeph's kind of monologue overlapped with Luffy's fight with KRIEG. It happens here at the end of the episode especially, and if you guys want to go watch that back, I'd love that if you could do that and explain to me exactly what do you think he means here, because I'm not entirely sure. But that's my thoughts on these 2 episodes. I'm really looking forward to the next 2. I know that it is the end of the arc. So I'm very excited. Obviously, like I said, I feel like they're going to be very rewarding. And I will post the next 2 episodes for patrons on Tuesday. And then the review part will be posted on Wednesday evening. Thank you guys so much for your patience. Thank you for watching with me. Thank you for listening to my thoughts and sharing your thoughts in the comment section. A big shout out once again to Linus. Thank you for sponsoring this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.